Byebug is one of the most powerful tools you can have in your toolbox for debugging as a Rails developer. Another similar program, binding.pry, is going to do the same thing. We're going to talk about Byebug. Here we're on the Byebug Gems homepage, and it talks about some of the things that it does, and it essentially allows you to go inside of your Ruby program while it's executing. So you can step into these individual actions as they're executing and run commands and run queries to see what's going on. By default, Rails comes with Byebug as one of its gems in the development test group. So let's look at some examples, some ways you can leverage Byebug in your Rails development. All right, so let's say you have this post model, and in here you have this kind of contrived method here to do with. It takes a parameter word. And so this is basically just returning any posts that contain that word in its title. So then you have this spec here that said, this should return posts that contain that passed in word in their title. And so you'll run this, and it's failing. So we expected it to bring back this particular post, but it didn't. So why didn't it? So we can just do your normal troubleshooting, or you can start passing in the word Byebug into different areas to start figuring out why. So for example, we can pass in Byebug into this spec and run this again. And then this is going to stop the execution right there at that line and allow us to see what's going on here. What is the Rails test environment thinks going on? So for example, what does Jack's post look like? Okay, that's what we expect. Well, how many posts do we have? And so we can actually query the database just like you're querying the Rails console. And we have 1. Well, we're expecting to have 2, right? We're expecting to have this one and this one. So why don't we have 2? And the reason we don't have 2 in this particular case is because we're not creating them. These are being lazy loaded with let. So we can do that. And we can go back in here and run it again. And now if we do count, now we have 2. So maybe now it should be working. We hit C for continue. This is just short for continue. And, oh, it's still not working. All right, so we can take that out of there. Another place that we can look is in the method itself. So we can add the word Byebug here. And we'll execute again. And so now we can execute anything that's going on in here. We can still run the same commands. We can still run the same things we do on our Rails console. We can also see, all right, well, what does this word equal? Capital Jack. That's what's being passed in. When we look back at our spec, we have capital Jack, but you'll notice the title is being created with lowercase Jack. We can actually run this, and why isn't it returning anything? Well, it does go back to, so you can see we can run all of this in real time inside of this method just to debug. And so what's happening here is we have a case sensitivity issue rather. So we can test with down casing. And again, we can hit C for continue. And now we've removed the Byebug, so they should not halt anywhere. And if we run the spec again, it passes, as we would expect. So that's debugging inside of a spec. We can also debug inside of other files, like a controller, for example. So let's say this is a simple app I just spun up using a scaffold on the post model. And let's say we're creating a new post and we're having issues creating a new post. So we can go into the post controller, into the create action, and toss a Byebug in here. And when we do so, and we go to create some new post, you'll see that over here in the Rails server window, we get our Byebug. Same exact experience, same access. So again, we have access to the Rails console. We can count how many posts now are in. This is now looking at our development database, not our test database, and we have 1. We can look at the params being passed in. Params are something that is part of every controller method being passed in. We can look at our params and see what's being passed in. We can inspect variables. So what's going on with this at post? What's its value? Well, it's not set yet. We haven't got to that line yet. We can then run commands in here. We can actually step and skip through. You'll see there are a number, if we go back to the documentation, there are a number of commands that you can run in here. A couple important ones are next and step and continue. Those are some of the ones we talked about already. Next is going to go to the next block to be executed. Step is going to step down into each individual item. So if we run next here, this is going to move down past this line that was executed. So now if we run at post, now it has a value and now it's actually set. And we can inspect this. So at post, is this valid? Is it persisted? So you can run these commands. So Byebug allows you to, in real time, debug what's going on in your models, in your controllers, and in your tests to really supercharge your debugging capabilities.